About structuring a session. We're going to go around and introduce ourselves really quickly. I'm Anna.
I'm Renee.
I'm Cosette.
Cosette.
Stephanie.
I'm Sophia. Ashley.
Jenny.
Stacy. Roland.
Okay. Nice to meet everybody. Let us know if you have any questions along the way or if you need us to slow down. Okay.
All right, so we're going to go over structuring a session. So organization for staff and for clients. So making sure that you guys have things prepared and ready to go of what you kind of plan to do that session. Stimulus control, and then creating a flow throughout your session. So have an agenda, have a plan when you guys are walking in as far as what you want to accomplish that session, what programs you want to run, what activities you guys want to use. So that way the entire session kind of flows smoothly.
Okay, so you have 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of session to kind of set up. So this is when you want to greet the family and the child, let them know that you're there, and let the family know you're going to start setting up. And this is a good time to target goals like weighting or self-direct for the kids that you have that do have these weighting goals or self-directing goals. So if you come in and your kiddo wants to start playing with you right away, and you let them know you need to wait 10 minutes, and you're already targeting a goal if that's one of their goals. Or if your client has a self-direct goal, if you say, I need 10 minutes, can they direct themselves to play with something independently? So you want to review the summary sheet and the binder. So if you are the only behavior tech on the case, you're probably going to be familiar with what's been going on, and you most likely know what you did your last session. But if you're not, it's a good idea just to kind of go back and see how your kiddo did during the last session with whoever else is on the team. And you want to identify what goals to target. So a lot of the times you don't have the opportunity to target all of your goals. And so if you had a session on Monday and you come back Wednesday, and Wednesday you realize you didn't target safety goals and you didn't target some of the independent living goals, that's something that you would want to prioritize for your Wednesday session so that during that week you are able to hit all those targets. And then you want to get a data sheet prepared. So if you don't have the printed or the typed up data sheets, just use the summary sheet as a model so that you can fill in your data sheet. And then you want to get an overview of the child's day from the parents. So if you have a morning session, just ask them, like, did they get enough sleep? How was last night? How was it this morning before I came in? If they were in school and you show up for an evening session, ask them about school, how they've been doing, if there's anything that parents need to tell you about. So like if they didn't get enough sleep, sometimes you'll go into session and your kid is engaging in more behaviors than is typical for him or her, and then parents will say like, oh, well, they've been up since 3 a.m. So those are things that you would want to know before you start your session to kind of give you an idea of what your session may or may not look like.
Your last 10 15 minutes of the session. So you've run your session, you've targeted your goals, you're ending your session now. The last 10 15 minutes, kind of wrap up with the parents, let them know things that you've worked on, things that the child did really well, things that maybe they had difficulty on that they can kind of work on outside of session when you guys are there. But just a quick kind of overview of kind of how session went that day. Tally up all the percentages. So take your daily data sheet, make sure that you tally everything up, and then make sure that you transfer all of those percentages to your summary sheet. Make sure you finish your task analysis. Any of those extra data sheets, make sure everything is tallied up and transferred to the summary sheet. Write in your session notes. So again, just a quick kind of overview of how session went, any behaviors you saw, things like that that you worked on. Place everything back in the binder. Make sure that nothing's left out. We want to make sure that everything's put back in and it's in the binder for the next session when they come out. Sign out, and so at the very front of the binder there should be a login logout sheet where you guys put in your name, the time that you got there, time that you left, and always get the parent to initial at the end of session that you guys were there.
Any questions?
So we have to sign in, clock in through shift planning before going in, and we have to sign in on the sheet.
Yes.
Every time we go?
Yes.
And they have to initial after every session.
Yes. We want to make sure that those two match up. So if there's any questions when you take in your shift planning 2-week timesheet to the parents to sign. If there's any concerns or any discrepancies, they can look at the binder and say, oh yeah, they match exactly. So those two should look exactly the same. Yes.
One of my clients' parents, she doesn't speak English, and there's usually not really a translator in the house when I'm there.
Okay.
So how do you suggest like asking her about sleep and school? Like,
That may have to be something that you talk with the supervisor on the case on. So maybe you guys do like a weekly kind of check-in with the parents or something like that. If you notice in your session that there's anything going on, if you notice it was a really difficult session, child was lethargic or whatever's going on, just let your supervisor know immediately after session, and then they can call the parent that day or the next day and kind of follow up and just kind of see what's going on and then let you know, oh yeah, it's because he was up all night or he wasn't feeling well and didn't eat the day before. So at least you know and have an idea of what's going on.
Okay, so again, you want to make sure that you're always rotating goals and targets so that all of your goals are being worked on. So if you didn't target something during your Monday session and you're back on Wednesday or Tuesday or whenever your next session is, make sure that you target those goals first. So there are goals that are going to be, you're going to have limited opportunities to target. So a lot of community safety goals, if you're not able to go on community walks or you don't do very many outings, you might be limited on when you can target those. But that's something that, again, you would want to talk to the supervisor about and the parent consultant and see if they can maybe have like a goal for parents to create opportunities for community outing once so that you can work on these targets in the community.
Structuring your session. So things to look out for and keep in mind when you're structuring your session. Always look at the level of functioning of your client. So where are they verbally, behaviorally, kind of what's going on so you know how to structure your session and what activities to use. The gender and the age of the client, so making sure that you're really aware of that as well. We want to make sure that activities are age appropriate and gender appropriate for that client. Target behaviors, the environment, parent involvement, and client's interests. So really taking all of these things into mind when you're walking in and you're going to have a plan of what you want to do, knowing that maybe parents are there the first 15 minutes and then it's the nanny. So, okay, I want to make sure the first thing that I target is something with parent involvement. So maybe more self-help, maybe community outings, or if parents are there at the very end, so leave those things to the end of the session. The environment, so if there's multiple people in the home or things that may be somewhat of a barrier, keeping that in mind when you're targeting your programs and activities. So we're going to go in the living room to do these activities, then we'll come back out into the bedroom and we'll do this. So have a plan in mind and take all that into consideration when you guys are planning out your sessions.
Okay, so you want to have a plan. Later on, we're going to actually, the next slide is a sample of a session agenda kind of a thing. And we're going to have you guys practice that a lot today so you can get more of a rhythm going for when you're planning your sessions. So you want to prepare appropriate activities to incorporate into sessions. So appropriate meaning they're age appropriate and they're gender appropriate. This might get tricky sometimes because you might have a client who is older. So I don't know, let's just say he's 15 or 16, but he's lower functioning. So it's going to be hard for you to come up with activities that are age appropriate for a 15-year-old, but also something that he's going to be able to really engage in. So you wouldn't want to bring in baby toys if he's cognitively at that level, but you're not going to bring in something like, what do 15-year-olds do, like Monopoly, that he's definitely not going to understand or engage in. So that's where you have to be very creative in your activities. You want to identify the goals that you want to target. So whenever you are structuring your session and you decide you're going to do bubbles, you shouldn't just do bubbles because the client likes bubbles, but you're going to do bubbles because specifically you're going to target manding, you're going to target eye contact, and waiting. So you should always have those goals in mind. So once you get to learn more about your kiddo, you'll know exactly what their goals are, and you'll already know, oh, okay, I can use this activity to target these goals. And then you want to incorporate parents. So parents have to participate in 25% of session. So this is in addition to the parent consultation hours. So if you have a 2-hour session, parents need to participate 25% of those 2 hours. So this is, you can use parents a lot during self-help skills. So like potty training, if you guys are working on potty training, or feeding or dressing, have them be a part of that because they are supposed to participate 25% of every session. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So we put up a session agenda sample. So this is something that kind of you guys would use for yourselves just to kind of help you out in structuring your session and knowing kind of what you want to do. So first 15 minutes, you're going to set up, get your data sheets out, look through the binder, look through the summary sheet, make sure you know what programs you want to target. 15 minutes after that, you're going to do bubbles, let's say, and you're going to work on manding and eye contact. 3:30 to 3:45, you're going to pull out a book. And you're going to work on answering WH questions, tacting. Now, those are going to be different for every client. It's going to be client specific, but just an example of kind of what it would look like. And then 3:45 to 4, you're going to play Pop the Pig, and you can work on turn taking, manding, eye contact, waiting. But this just gives you an example of kind of what sessions should look like and how to structure an activity connected to programs that you're going to target.
So you guys don't actually have to fill one of these out, but like she was saying, it's more to kind of help you get organized. And we printed out a template for you guys. We're going to be practicing on these a little bit later. Okay.
No.
Okay, so what happens if you have this great plan for your session and your client starts engaging in behaviors? So if and when they do, the structure of your session might change, and that's okay. So you don't have to be extremely rigid, and it's okay to be flexible and change things up. So you may need to go from preferred activity to a more neutral activity. So let's say you're midway through your session and your kid starts having a tantrum because they were denied access to something that was highly preferred. So you're not going to make them go from having this massive tantrum to now an activity that they really, really despise. But then you don't want to go to a highly preferred activity because you don't want to think they're being reinforced, right? So you would go to a more neutral activity. So something that they're kind of just okay with doing. It's not reinforcing, but it's not that aversive to them either. So you would go from a preferred to a neutral, and then to a, instead of a non-preferred, to a preferred. When you do start your sessions, though, you should always start with a preferred activity. So not so highly preferred that it's going to be really difficult for you to transition the kid away from it in order to actually start your session with more functional activities, but it definitely should be something that they want to do because you want them to come towards you and then you want them to like you. You want to establish that rapport every session. So even if you've been working with this kid for a year, it doesn't mean that they're going to be happy to see you all the time. So you want to make sure that when you do get there, you start with something that's preferred so that everything starts off on the right foot. If they are engaging in any kind of behavior, you want to lessen the response effort. So you wouldn't allow the kid to escape and just be like, okay, fine, it's okay, you can have whatever it is that they wanted. But let's just say, I'll give you guys an example of a session I had that we gave this example to the other group. I had a session 2 weeks ago, and we asked the kid to clean up trains. And so he started chucking the trains at us and at the walls. And so we didn't want we did not want to follow through. So he was on the other side of the room, and the trains now were on the opposite side. So what the behavior tech started doing was bringing stuff closer to him. So he's still tantruming over here in this corner, but we still wanted to follow through with him cleaning up. So we wanted to lessen the response effort because it was going to be very effortful for him at that moment to get up and go across the room to start picking up the trains. So instead what we did is we brought the train tracks and the trains a little bit closer to him so that then his response effort would only have to be to reach his arm and grab a piece and throw it into the bucket that we wanted him to pick So a lot of the times, or last time we had some people ask if it was appropriate to give them a break. So what if they're having a tantrum or any kind of other behavior and they ask for a break? Can we give them a break and then have them come back and clean up whatever it is? So we always say follow through with whatever instruction or demand you placed on them first. So if you said pick up the trains and they're having a tantrum because they don't want to pick up the trains and then they ask for a break, first pick up the trains, then you can have your break. So always follow through because it's not okay for them to have a break and then when they're ready, like, okay, I decided now I can come back and pick up the trains. So always follow through with the original demand.
Targeting communication language goals. So if there's a goal, and I think a good thing, I don't know if you guys always see this, typically on your data sheet it's just written as like one word man or 3+ word mans, but I think it is important and really good for you guys to look through the reports, the FBAs, the progress reports that should be in the binder, so you can kind of know what the goal is written as and what it looks like and what you're working on rather than just like the quick target. So a goal that could be in a report would be by December 2016, Johnny will use 3-word mans in 80% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So you're working on manding, you're working on having them request an item or activity. So it can be, depending on the child's level, I want blank, can I have, I need. So the example that we put on here was the child wants bubbles, but they're on the top shelf of a bookshelf and they can't reach it. So you're going to prompt the child to appropriately man for the item. So they shouldn't grab the item, they shouldn't climb up the bookshelf, but they should appropriately use their language and ask wherever they're at. If it's a one word, they should be able to say bubbles. If it's more, I want bubbles, please. And then also depending on where the prompt level is, you may have to initially provide that initial prompt for them as well.
Okay, so the next, I don't know why I did that. It's weird. Okay, I was supposed to say communication language. I don't know why the format changed. So this is another goal that you might see. By December 2016, Johnny will independently and correctly tag objects in his environment in 80% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. Is anybody here working on any tagging goals with your kids? No? Okay. So tacting, the best way to remember it is anything that applies to the 5 senses. So a lot of people think of tacting as like labeling or making a comment or a statement about an object. So I see, I hear, I smell. So you and the client are walking or playing outside and you start tacting things like I see a bird, I hear a dog barking, I smell a barbecue. And so another goal you might see is Johnny will respond with similar tact phrases. So that would mean that if you say I see a bird, Johnny would then say I see a dog. Or if you said I hear a dog barking, Johnny would say I hear a cat, purring or whatever it is. What activities could you use for tacting besides playing outside and going for a walk? I spy. Okay. What else?
Reading a book together.
Yeah, reading a book. And that's one of the more popular activities for tacting, reading a book. Okay.
Moving on to play. So the goal is written as by December 2016, Johnny will engage in play with peers for a duration of 5 minutes and 80% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So targeting cooperative play, and it could be anything, board games, playing tag, water balloons. The goal that you're working on is the duration. So you want to see how long is Johnny able to sustain play with another peer for. The ultimate goal is written as 5 minutes. You might be at 30 seconds, depending on where the target is, but you want to prompt the child or Johnny to engage for that amount of time with another peer. What other activities could you use for cooperative play to work on this goal?
And you guys can include yourself?
No,
No?
you would be counted as an adult.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Now, there might be some exceptions depending on your client, so talk to your supervisor.
Okay.
But typically, it would be somebody, most of our kiddos are a little bit younger, so it would be someone their age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything with rules, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, would be, because there could be a lot of different games.
Do you have one that you've used or that you can think of?
Yeah, like shoots and ladders.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was thinking
For shoots and ladders, besides cooperative play, what other goals could you target during that one activity?
time taking, waiting.
Mhm. Yeah, good. So one activity doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're just targeting that one goal, but a lot of them overlap. So you might do shoots and ladders, but be able to target 5 different programs in that one setting. So keep that in mind too. You don't have to do 15 activities for 15 programs or whatever it is that you have planned, but having them overlap as well.
Yeah, so kind of like the table that we showed earlier, it had one activity and there was like 2 to 3 goals. So that's why you should have more than 5 data points on your sheet, because with every activity you can target at least 2 or 3 goals. Okay. Any questions about play goals or activities for play? Okay, for behaviors. So let's say the target behavior is tantrums, so you're trying to decrease the frequency of tantrums. And the replacement behavior is that Johnny will engage in coping strategies when upset and refrain from engaging in maladaptive behaviors in 80% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So some of the coping skills that we most often see are requesting a break or taking deep breaths. What other things do you guys see for coping? Okay, we're going to start calling on people if people don't start volunteering their answers. Stress ball? Okay. Okay.
Listening to music.
Yeah, listening to music, counting. Yeah, so coping is different for everybody, right? So you know it's coping if it starts to decrease the behavior, the magnitude of the behavior. So if they're having a tantrum and then they request a break and they go and they take a break and you see like that kind of de-escalates it, then they're coping.
Like I have a kid that in the building, the neighbors do a lot of noise, a lot of knocking, so he asked for the headphones. So he puts the headphones.
Yeah, and that's perfect. With coping, it can be a little tricky, especially for our little ones. So if you have like a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old and they have a coping goal, it's not really very natural or typical for a 3-year-old to take deep breaths and cope that way. So this is where for a 3-year-old though, leave me alone, or I don't want to do that right now, is similar to them requesting a break. So then obviously shaping that language so that it's more appropriate. Like I need to take a break, or I want to be alone. For a little 4-year-old or a 5-year-old even would be more age appropriate than trying to teach them to take deep breaths and for them to really get that. We're trying to get them to calm down. But for an older kid, like take a deep breath, cool off a little bit. That would be more appropriate.
Targeting community and safety goals. By December 2016, Johnny will look both ways before crossing the street and will cross the street when it's safe to do so in 100% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So crossing the street, depending on kind of where your client is, but typically you'd use a task analysis. It has all the steps kind of listed on the left-hand side, and then you would take data on what prompts you use for each step. You might use visuals, depending on what is needed for that client. And you can target this. It doesn't have to be that you guys are going out like on a community outing, but you can walk around the block during session. Just talk to your supervisor, make sure that it's safe and it's okay, that you're within distance. We don't want you guys to go miles away from the home if you're alone, but always have an adult, a parent with you guys when you're doing this. What other activities could you use to target safety goals? It doesn't necessarily have to be crossing the street, but any safety goals. What else could you do?
What other safety goals do you guys see on your your cases? And what activities do you use?
Practice, stop, go.
Do you do that in the community or do you do that?
Oh, well, like in the house, like the other day it was raining, so we made stop signs.
Oh.
So we take like stop and then go, and then when we'll walk, we'll hear stop,
Mhm.
cars, and we go.
So you're doing it both in home and the community. You're also using visuals. So that's perfect.
Story, story, or
Social stories.
social story.
Somebody said red light, green light during our last presentation. So, red means stop, green means go. Or like using the actual visuals of the little white man and the hand for them to identify. Does anybody know why community safety goals are always, the mastery criteria is 100%?
Because you don't want a kid looking like, doing those be only 80% of the time.
Yeah, because how do you cross the street 80% of the time? You have to do it 100% of the time, otherwise you're going to get hit by a car. The other 20%. So, yeah, so all safety goals you'll see are always 100% for safety reasons, because you always want to be 100% across the street. Okay, so targeting adaptive skills. So it can be under adaptive skills on the report, or it might say daily living skills. It means the same thing. So you might see a goal like this one. By December 2016, Johnny will independently prepare 5 meals or snacks in 80% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So this goal you would see for an older kiddo. You're not going to do this with a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or even a 6-year-old. And on your data sheet, you might find it as meal prep or make a snack. And you could do a sandwich, a quesadilla, a bowl of cereal, depending on the level of the client. So if your client is older but has never made any kind of a snack ever or any meal, you don't want to start with making something that's over the stove or in the oven. So you would start with like a sandwich or a bowl of cereal or making something cold, or putting just together a snack like a bowl of pretzels and strawberries or something. And then another goal you might see is Johnny will follow the steps necessary to independently purchase an item in the community in 80% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So anytime you see a goal that says we'll follow the steps necessary to, it means you're going to be using a task analysis. And your supervisor would make that for you and provide that to you.
Any questions about task analysis? Have you guys used
Kind of used it. One of the goals, one of my clients has is taking a shower. So we go through it before.
Mhm.
And the task analysis are, there's a separate sheet for them in the binder. And then oftentimes, if it's a younger kid or a kid who just benefits a lot from visuals, there will be a visual. So like you said, the shower ones, I don't know if you guys have seen the task analysis with the showers. It has all the steps. Or washing hands. I see that one a lot. And it's just a strip and it has all the steps to washing their hands. And usually we'll just put it above the sink. So with task analysis, it's often beneficial to use visuals, especially for the younger kids. What daily living skills are you guys targeting now with your kids, and what activities do you do?
For one, it's cleaning up the table. And we start sessions, so we just start off by kind of prompting them. Okay, what do we do before session? So they know already. When I get there, he's eating, so he knows after he's done eating to clean the table. And another one, it's kind of difficult because they don't have a kitchen. They have like a little corner thing, so he has the same thing with making meals. So I found out he likes to bake, so we're gonna end up baking pretty soon.
That's
So we're
good.
gonna do it.
And I like that he's mentioned something. He said, usually when I get there, he's eating, so then we start by cleaning the table. So whenever you guys are targeting these goals, especially like the self-help skills, you don't want to just randomly make these kids do things. Because it's not natural to be like, okay, we're playing outside. Now we got to go inside and clean the table. But instead, take advantage of those opportunities. So, he just finished eating, so this is perfect. We are going to clean the table because you just ate, so let's wipe it down so that we can start session. But if your kiddo has a goal for washing hands, um, you're not going to just randomly make them go wash their hands. So if you guys are doing like arts and crafts and they have a washing hands goals, like, oh, we're finished with arts and crafts, we have paint all over our fingers, let's go wash our hands. And that's appropriate because you're targeting the goal and it's very natural, and that will happen in life on a daily, or on a day-to-day basis. You do wash your hands, but it's right after or before. So if you know that if your session starts at 10, if you go 10 to 1, let's just say, and your kiddo has lunch around 12:30 or 11:30, and they have feeding goals, like try new foods or will feed independently or whatever the goal is, and they have a hand washing goal, that's perfect. You go do an activity, go play outside. Hey, we're going to eat after we play outside, so let's wash our hands, and then you're targeting the washing hands, and then you're sitting for the meal. So if they have the goal for sitting or trying the meal, you're targeting that, and then after the food's over, you can go and have them wash their hands again. Whenever you guys are doing self-help skills like washing hands, or dressing or brushing teeth or any of those things, you only want to track data the first time you run the program because that's what's going to be most reflective of the child's skills. So even if you target hand washing multiple times throughout session, the first time that you target it is when you really want to take the data using the task analysis, because that's going to show the supervisor on the case how well that kid is actually progressing. Because they might do it really poorly the first time, but then if you have them wash their hands 5 times during session, it might get a little bit better. But that first trial is the one that's going to be the most representative of what they can or cannot do.
Targeting adaptive living skills. So the goal states, by December 2016, Johnny will engage in a hand washing routine in 100% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but again, you'd have a task analysis with all the steps listed. You might use visuals. A lot of times it is helpful, but depending on where your child is, you might have those visuals out for them. You might have some, just depending on kind of how you're working on it. And again, like Anna mentioned, make sure that it's functional. So work on it before they're eating, after they finish eating. If you guys are outside doing chalk or something, you guys can then come back in and work on hand washing. But just make sure that it's functional and it makes sense and it's not just a random kind of task.
Any questions on independent living? Targeting executive function. So this is a little trickier. I don't know if anybody here is targeting any executive function goals. Is anybody doing any of these? No? Okay, so we'll go over it. And these kinds of goals you'll see for the older, higher functioning kids. So Johnny will reciprocate comments about objects 80% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So that first sentence that I just read off would be the ultimate goal. And then it has sub-goals. So in order for them to do that, they first need to do A and be able to do B in order for them to truly meet that ultimate goal. So the first sub-goal would be Johnny will describe an item in view to another person by giving details pertaining to the feature, the function, and the class of the item for at least 20 items in 80% of opportunities. So an example of this would be Johnny is looking at a shoe. There's a shoe in front of Johnny. And you say, Johnny tells you, like, you wear shoes on your feet. You wear shoes to do this. So he would describe the feature, the function, and the class of the shoe while he's looking at it. And he would do that for 20 different items. And then after that, Johnny would then have to describe an item not in view to another person by talking about the feature, the function, and the class. So then, without looking at a shoe, having any kind of a visual of the shoe, Shawnee Johnny would be able to do the same exact thing. Okay. And these goals, again, like you said, we see them for older kids or higher functioning kids. So if you ever do get one, this is a little bit harder to target, especially if you haven't worked with older kids or higher functioning kids. So talk to your supervisor if you do ever come across executive functioning goals so that you know that you're targeting them correctly.
All right. Targeting social skills. By December 2016, Johnny will correctly demonstrate social skills. Manners such as saying excuse me, bless you when someone sneezes, and using please and thank you as modeled for him by the behavior check, with absence of maladaptive behaviors and 80% of opportunities across 2 consecutive weeks. So you want to demonstrate and model for them. So it could be during conversations, in games, interactions with parents. You can kind of model that for them as well, and then prompt them to kind of use those same goals that and targets that you're working on. What activities have you guys used or are using now that you could possibly target some of these goals and targets? Do any of you guys have a goal similar to this or have worked on?
I mean, kind of naturally through, like, when their parents do, like, make them dinner or snacks every time. Like, what do you say? They did that, thank you. Or even or during social skills class, when their friend, their peer gives them something, or whatever, like, transaction, that's always happening. It's always a response to that.
Very natural kind of opportunities.
Anybody else working on social skills? Does anybody come to social skills with any of their kids?
Any play dates? Community outings with peers?
A lot of people come in and go to their own sessions, so they like ring the doorbell and he goes and gets the kid, greets them.
Okay. So more naturally occurring opportunities. Oops. Too far. Okay, things to keep in mind. So you always take data and you always track behaviors. So even if it's your very first day on a case, and the first couple of days, few days, you're establishing a report, that does not mean you don't take data. So if you don't understand all of the programs, that's okay, but there will be at least one or two that you do understand, and you'll take data on at least those two programs. And for behaviors, you're always going to track behaviors. So even if it's your very first day, because what if you show up and your very first day that kid has, 10 occurrences of aggression and 2 tantrum, like that's important to know. So you always track data. Also, if you are ever out in the community, you also need to track data. Oftentimes, during community outings, data isn't tracked. So we always say, don't take like your clipboard. If you guys have a clipboard, don't take your clipboard and or the binder and carry it around with you in the community. A lot of the times we have parents who don't really want people to know that their child has any kind of disability or difference. And when we're carrying around like this huge thing with us, it draws attention. And sometimes these kids already draw enough attention to themselves as it is, and parents don't like that. And so you need to be respectful of not only the client, but also the family. So if you are out in the community, take data on your hand, or on a sticky note, or fold your data sheet, put it in your pocket, and just take it out as needed. But if you're in the community, you already know, okay, this is a great opportunity to target those community safety goals that I have. So I'm going to target all of those, and then 1 or 2 of the other ones that maybe you didn't really target in the home that you can target in the community. So definitely keep that in mind for data. And then be creative during your sessions. So things become routines, and then sometimes our kids get kind of bored. And sometimes we'll see that they'll plateau, and sometimes it's just the activities. Like they already know what's coming. They've already played all these activities over and over and over, and they're just not interested anymore. You incorporate the parents. So again, like we said earlier, parents have to participate 25% of every session. So what happens if you have a parent that doesn't participate? Does anybody have that experience now?
The parent that doesn't speak English.
Okay, is it a language barrier, and that's why she's not participating? Okay, so like Ronit was saying, talk to your supervisor or whoever, if the supervisor speaks Spanish or if the PC speaks Spanish, I'm sure, and have them talk to mom about what activities you would want her to participate. And then, maybe if like you guys need to create some kind of a visual or something with like a card that says in Spanish, like we're gonna play this in 5 minutes, give it to her so she knows.
Because she knows. Well, I took Spanish like in high school and college, so I know a little bit of it. But the little Spanish that I do know, she knows in English. So I can kind of talk to her, but I just have to be like, I don't know. I'm just afraid I'm gonna be talking to her and she won't understand what I'm saying, or she'll be talking to me and I won't understand what she's saying.
Right.
Yeah.
And use those natural occurring opportunities. So feeding. I don't know how old your child is.
I've only had 2 sessions with her.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. But those things that come up naturally, if they're in the process of potty training or dressing or any of that kind of stuff, that's a little bit easier. We can like hold up a shirt or give it to mom, and she's kind of understanding like, oh, okay, she needs to be changed. So any of those kind of things you can definitely use. Pointing to the kitchen or taking the child to the kitchen and letting mom know that they're hungry. So any of that kind of stuff, that can all count as participation.
Anybody else have a hard time incorporating parents into session? Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, and then provide appropriate breaks. So appropriate meaning don't give them breaks and then allow them to escape, and then also don't make your breaks extremely long. So a good break would be about 5 minutes. If you have a really long session, like a 5 to 6 hour session, giving the client like a 10, 15-minute break is totally fine. But if your session is 2 hours long, you shouldn't be giving the kid 3 breaks that are each 15 minutes. 5 minutes, 2 minutes is fine. And then be playful and fun, but productive. So again, always keep in mind what the purpose of your activity is. So don't just do things to fill time, but all of your activities should have a purpose, and we're going to practice that in our next slide. So we're going to give each of you guys one of these, and you're going to fill it out. We'll show you a sample. We're going to read these scenarios, and there's 5 scenarios, but there's only a few of you guys. So we can do all 5. We have time. So we'll just do 2, 2, and 3. So we'll do scenario 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll do 4, and then 5. Since there's 5 scenarios. Does that work? Okay. So let's read the scenarios first. We'll go through all of them, and then you guys let us know if you have any questions on them, and then we'll explain what you guys are going to be doing.
So you guys are going to have scenario 1.
So the 2 girls, scenario 1, and then you 2 girls will have scenario 2, and then you will have 3 of you, 3, and then the 4 of you will do 4, and then the 3 of you will do 5. So 3 and 5, and then, yeah, lost.
So scenario 1. So it's a 17-year-old male, low functioning, nonverbal. He has limited self-help skills and a limited play repertoire. He's motivated by bouncing a ball, food, and straws. Behaviors include elopement, aggression, and SIVs. So what you're going to do as a group is create a sample 2-hour session agenda, so like the sample that we had shown you earlier, that targets the following goals, and also include a minimum of 2 activities that you would use to target each goal. So you're going to work on manding, sustaining attention, turn taking, washing hands, and feeding independently. Yes.
What's that SIV?
Self-injurious behaviors.
So it's like
Hitting
themselves. It can look differently, but typically it's like the head banging. I have a kid that does scratching, like severe scratching. I have another one that does like a lip bite, where he like puncture through the lip. So it can look differently, but it's just anything that they're doing.
Injuring
themselves. Okay. Do you ladies have any questions about that one? Okay.
So you 2 are going to have scenario 2.
Yeah. And then, okay, scenario 2, you are working with a 12-year-old high-functioning male who is verbal. He doesn't think he needs services and consistently protests when the therapists arrive. He likes to play video games, play outside, card games, and magic. Behaviors include verbal protests, aggression, and noncompliance. So you're going to create a sample 2-hour session that targets the following goals, again, doing a minimum of 2 activities for each goal. Reciprocal conversation, leisure activities, eye contact, chores, and preparing a meal. Do you ladies have any questions about that scenario? Are the targets make sense? Okay.
And then you three will have scenario 3. So it's an 8-year-old female who is mild to moderate. She does not sustain attention for more than 5 to 7 minutes with non-preferred activities. She's vocal but does not use her speech to communicate consistently. She has a limited self-help skills and does not interact with peers. She's motivated by super nanny videos and arts and crafts activities. Behaviors include elopement and vocal outbursts. You're going to create a sample 2-hour session agenda that includes the following goals and then 2 activities to target each goal. Requesting more time, crossing the street, initiating communication, sustaining on-topic conversation, and responding to gestures. Questions about any of the goals or targets? Should we let them do that?
Yeah, okay, so we'll do those 3, and then we'll go back to 4 and 5. Okay, so this is what you guys are going to be filling out. So there's 3 columns: time, activity, and the goals targeted. So you're going to fill this out as if you're having an actual 2-hour session. Put in the breaks as necessary. You decide whatever time you want to start your session. This is what it would look like at the very end. So it would be the time, the activity, and then the goals that you targeted. Okay. So the first 3 were the examples on there. So we'll just go over them. So it was 3 to 3:15 therapist setup or behavior tech setup, and you're not targeting any goals unless your child has like a waiting goal or a self-direct goal. So if your kid has that, you can use that. 3:15 to 3:30, we're going to do bubbles, and we're going to target manding and eye contact. And then 3:30 to 3:45, we're going to read a book, and we're going to target answering WH questions and tacting. And then 3:45 to 4, we're doing Pop the Pig, and then we're targeting different goals. So make sure that you do at least 2 activities, and the reason why we're having you do 2 is so that you guys can kind of think about all these different things you can do and target all these goals. And do not use the same activity more than once in your session. So you can only use it one time, okay? So we're going to give you guys 15 minutes to come up with each of your sessions, and then you guys will each present your session, and we'll give you guys feedback on whether that would be great or things you could change here and there. So we'll come back in 15 minutes. We'll talk about that, and then we'll come back again to do 4 and 5. Okay? Okay, so we're gonna go over scenario 1. So we'll just reread it really quickly. So 17-year-old male, low functioning, nonverbal, limited self-help skills, and a limited play repertoire. He is motivated by bouncing a ball, food, and straws. Behaviors include elopement, aggression, and SIB. And you guys were supposed to target manding, sustain attention, turn-taking, washing hands, and feeding independently. So let us know what your session looks like.
Okay, so we start at 5 to 5:15. We would set up. There's not really a specific target for that. And then 5:15 to 5:30, so about 15 minutes, we would do like a ball pass game, and where he can work on manding for it since he's nonverbal, like simple gestures, and turn taking as well. And then 5:30 to 5:45, we can transition to book reading, which is just sustaining his attention, working on sustaining attention, and then turn taking with page turning, and then maybe some manding in there.
What would you have a mand for with the book?
To turn, like, if you wants to turn the page.
Okay.
And then 5:45 to 5:50 would be a break. For like a 5 to maybe 10-minute break.
And then we did 5:50 to 6:20, so working on feeding, so dinner or snack or lunch or whatever worked into the family schedule. Working on eating independently, washing hands, and manding. 6:20 to 6:25, another break. 6:25 to 6:45, one of his potential reinforcers is playing with straws, and so working on playing with straws, whatever that means. So working on manding, turn taking, possibly sustaining attention. And then 6:45 to 7, taking data and cleanup.
Okay, good. That's good. And then for him, since he's nonverbal, for Mandy, you could use like pecs, or you could do, signs.
Or
If he,
this visual card.
yeah, yeah, if he has any sign. And this is actually one of our kids. So. Okay, good job, ladies. So let's go on to, does anybody have any questions about their session? No? Okay. So scenario 2 was a 12-year-old male who's verbal and he doesn't like us to be there. He likes to play video games, play outside card games and magic, and he verbally protests, he's aggressive and non-compliant. So you guys needed to target reciprocal conversation, leisure activities, eye contact, chores, and preparing a meal. So what would you do?
So we started at 2 to 2:15 setup, and 2:15 to 2:30 we also did tossing a ball outside. Reciprocal conversation would be a goal targeted as well as eye contact. 2:30 to 3 we had a board game, something like magical since he likes magic. So I don't know if we could find a board game like that. For goals, leisure activities and eye contact as well. 3 p.m. to 3:05 we had a break, and 3:05 to 3:30 that was snack time, and then the goals were prepare a meal or snack, and then reciprocal conversation. 3:30 to 3:45 we had cleanup, so we had the goals, chores, and also reciprocal conversation. 3:45 to 4 p.m. that was wrap up and talk to the parents.
Good. That was really good. Any questions?
So for planning like this, would it be appropriate for us to go to the park, play basketball, or play a sport game like that?
Yes, as long as parents are within sight.
Inside? Okay.
But yeah, that would be appropriate too.
And I think for this guy, the first 15 minutes and last 15 minutes is a great opportunity to work on leisure activities, because that should be something that he can do on his own without us helping him. So saying, hey, I'm going to get my stuff together. I want you to go read a book, or I want you to go find something to do.
Yeah.
And work on that goal.
Exactly. Good. And then taking into account or taking note of what activities he is engaging in during that leisure time. So that then you can tell your supervisor, like, oh, he does this independently, he does this independently. Okay, good. Good observation. Okay, scenario 3, 8-year-old female who's mild to moderate. She does not sustain attention for more than 5 to 7 minutes with non-preferred activities. She's vocal but doesn't use her speech consistently. She has limited self-help skills and doesn't interact with peers. She's motivated by super nanny videos and arts and crafts. Behaviors include elopement, vocal outbursts. So you guys needed to target requesting more time, crossing the street, initiate communication, sustain on-topic conversations, and respond to gestures. What would you guys do for your session?
So the session started at 3 p.m. and from 3 to 3:15 it was for the PT setup, and we didn't have any behaviors we could target with that. From 3:15 to 3:45 we did arts and crafts, and the goals we could target there were respond to gestures, so like, can you pass me the glue, or can you pass me the scissors? And also request more time. And included with that, we were doing washing hands and playing. Is limited with her self-help skills, so we thought we could use that there also. And then from 3:45 to 4, we would go for a walk, and we would target crossing the street and initiate communication. And we thought we could also use word on sustain on topic conversation while we're out for the walk.
From 4 to 4:05, we would go allow them to go on a break. It's not really any goals we have that time. From 4:05 to 4:25, we have homework. So we'll help them out with homework. Respond to gestures, same thing. ask if you need help. Thank you, please. Staying on topic conversations, so conversation about like whether it's math or maybe they're reading a specific story in class. Then after that, 4:25 to 4:45, play with Barbies and clean up. Again, initiate conversation with the Barbies and the people playing with them, and respond to gestures in the same way. And then from 4:45 to 5, it's ET wrap up, so cleaning up and talking.
Okay. And then for requesting more time, where did you guys target that? I don't know if I heard that one. Arts and crafts. Okay, so requesting more time. And then, okay, for responding to gestures, I just want to clarify that target for you guys. So responding to gestures is like if you were to be playing arts and crafts and the glue stick is, you know, here and the scissors are here, and, you know, she like is holding the scissors or puts the scissors, and you were to go like this, like, you know, can I have it? And then she would respond and give it to you.
So I'm not using the words.
Right, just gestures. Or
So
like,
stop,
yeah, come
here,
here. Or like,
wait.
yeah, if you did like, you know, does she, oh, good job, or if you were to do this, or like, okay, or if you did like a, you know, like, oh, that smells. So gestures are nonverbal. Okay. Okay, good job, guys. Okay, so now we're gonna do scenario 4 and 5. So we'll give you guys about 7 minutes because we still need to take a post test. We don't have that much time left. We'll give you 10, but if you finish before that, we'll start. So you 4 girls over here on the left, we'll do scenario 4. Do you guys have any questions on, we won't reread it right now, the goals or the scenario itself? It's 4-year-old. You're targeting dressing, brushing teeth, following safety, cooperative play, answering WH questions, and tacting. No questions?
It'll be
Okay.
the 4 of you guys.
Yeah.
And the 3 of you guys.
And then do you guys have any questions on your scenario? So he's older, he's 21, and you're going to target engage in age-appropriate activities, request cessation, that basically means request a break. Self-advocate, so self-advocate means like you speak up for yourself. Yeah. Preparing a meal or snack, and answering personal identification questions. So what's your name, how old are you, address, phone number, things like that. Do you guys have any questions on those? Yeah, so he no longer attends school and is part of a transitional program. So it's an adult program where they like go to work, essentially.
It's more from like academic to daily living.
And so 2 to 3 times a week he goes to work and he gets home and he says he's tired. So he only listens to music during his leisure time, and that's one of the goals you're targeting, engage in age-appropriate activities. So we're trying to increase that repertoire of leisure activities. And he engages in the SIB and the aggression. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, so we'll give you guys 10 minutes and then we'll come back and talk about those sessions. Okay, so for scenario 4, you guys have a little 4-year-old and he's mild to moderate, vocal, and low compliance. He likes cars, the iPad. He is motivated by food. He elopes, tantrums, and vocally protests. And then you guys have those goals to target. So what did you do for your session?
Okay, so 3 to 3:15 setup, 3:15 to 3:30 playing with cars, working on tacting, WH questions, and cooperative play. 3:30 to 4 walking to the park and potentially playing basketball, working on dressing, putting on a coat, putting on your shoes, safety instructions, and tacting. 4 to 4:10 is a break. 4:10 to 4:20 snack time, so working on tacting, washing hands, WH questions, and then after snack, working on brushing teeth. 4:20 to 4:35, playing board games, working on cooperative play, tacting, and WH questions. 4:35 to 4:45, playing on the iPad together, so working on turn taking and cooperative play and also tacting. And then 4:45 to 5 is cleaning up and taking data.
Good. Good session. Okay, and then do you guys have any questions about their session? No? Okay, pretty good. And then scenario 5, okay, so just tell us what you have, and then wherever you got stuck, we'll work together. So you have a 21-year-old, and he is moderate to severe. He's vocal but doesn't use his speech consistently to communicate. He engages in SIB and aggression. He worked, so he's often tired. And you guys had to target the goals below. So what do you have?
Choosing what to make for dinner and what he wants to eat. 5:45 to 5:50 is a break, and he can request for cessation like after dinner to take that break, which is also self-advocating. 5:50 to 6:05 is we're gonna set up a music account together, so like setting up Pandora or like Spotify. Yeah, so he can like answer his personal identifying questions like his age and things like that. 6:05 to 6:25, we're gonna take a walk where he can answer. We can like have a conversation and he can answer personal identifying questions, and he can request a cessation to like go back home if he's tired. And then that's where we got stuck. We have like an extra 20 minutes. We don't really know.
Okay, so does anybody want to chime in? What would you guys do for this kid? So you can't prepare another meal. He already had a meal. He already went for a walk. So what about for targeting age-appropriate activities? Let's do that. So 10 minutes of that, and then let's do the other 10 minutes for self-advocacy.
How much time was devoted to making the meal and then eating it?
Yeah.
Age appropriate.
I was thinking maybe a card game.
You could do a card game. You could do like magazines, like looking at magazines. You would try to find interest. Like if he likes music, giving him magazines that have
Would he still be
different.
living with like his parents or something?
Yeah, this kid does.
So then one idea I had maybe was it involves self advocate playing Mafia. You guys ever play Mafia? It's a card game, and you pass around. Every card has a symbol. So the king is Mafia, or sometimes the king or ace, and then the queen would be the cop, and the jester or the joker or the jack would be the medic, and all the numbers have like are townspeople. So you go around and the mafia kills all people, and the people go around, they try to accuse people who's mafia. So whoever's accused, they advocate for themselves. Like, oh, I can't be it because I'm this and that. Like I wouldn't do that or anything.
Yeah, so because he only does music, so you guys did the Pandora account, which would be good to target the personal identification questions, but you want to present things to him for him to kind of expand on his repertoire. So you could do magazines, you could do card games. What else? Anybody have any other ideas?
I know. Well, he's like, but we practice texting, so that way if he wants to communicate, with friends.
Yeah. So that would take up the good last 20 minutes of session. Anybody else have any comments about this last scenario? No? Okay. So that pretty much wraps up the training. We do want to give you guys just a copy of the session agenda. So again, you don't have to do this, and you don't have to fill this out, but it's good just to kind of practice and to have an idea of what you can do. And visuals are helpful for our kids, and they're helpful for us too. So if you can just grab one and pass it around. And then we also have this article on examining the structure of your ABA program. So it talks about what it means to have structure in your session, and then how it's not good to be too rigid but not too flexible, and it talks just kind of like creating a happy medium. It's a really good article, so that's just kind of for your entertainment. So if you want to grab those and pass it out. And then this is just like a cheat sheet handout on sessions, and it kind of breaks down everything that we went over today into one page. Okay, so if you take one of those, and then we're gonna pass out the test. So you'll take the test. The feedback forms. So take the test. After your test, you'll fill out a feedback form just on any feedback you have for us. And then you'll turn both of those into us, and then Ramit will give you a timesheet that you will submit to payroll. Okay? Okay. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thanks for having me.